more so than the ones, the earlier ones. And there's certainly a lot of, in those latter ones that's written to or about the dark woman. There's a lot of guilt. You see a lot of guilt that comes through, and maybe even some shamefulness, or the narrator feels ashamed because it's someone that evidently he feels very guilty about being attracted to. So we don't know, if it was Shakespeare, Shakespeare was married. So was this someone, is he the narrator and it's written from his perspective and this was a woman that he was attracted to and he felt guilt about it? Or again, maybe he's not even the narrator. Maybe it was someone else he was talking about that was in love with this dark woman. And so anyway, we'll read some of those too. Those are kind of a lot of fun to read. All right, let's look at Sonnet 18. Now, remember, sonnets, how many lines are sonnets? There are 14 lines. Whether they're Shakespearean or any other sonnet, they're going to be 14 lines. And we talked about yesterday that Shakespeare sonnets use iambic pentameter. So you've got every line is going to have 5 unstressed and stressed syllables. Okay, so unstressed, stressed, and 5 times, much like a heartbeat. So you're going to have to dum, 5 different times. And that was no accident that these are written in a way that it mimics, if they're read correctly, will mimic a heartbeat, because most of these, they are love poems. And so, set against the rhythm of like a beating heart. And then the rhyme scheme. What's the rhyme scheme? Mm-hmm.
I don't know my alphabet.
I don't know. A, B, and
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, we're close, but so just to clear up any confusion. Yeah. Okay.
3 times, or no, 4
Yeah.
times.
No,
Yeah, well,
It alternates 3 men.
there's 14 lines, so you have 3 quatrains. Okay, so there's 12 lines right there. And then a couplet at the end, which is going to be always a couplet, would be 2 lines, and they rhyme. So it's A, B, A, B, C, D, C, D, E, F, E, F, and then G, G.
I got C and D. That's
Yeah.
the alphabet.
So when we look at this, you will see that that is the exact rhyme scheme that Shakespeare used in this poem. All right, let's read it. Somebody read it, and then read it aloud, and then we're going to break it down a little bit and analyze. Who would like to read? Oh,
Are
Maren.
you looking at me? Well,
Go ahead, girl.
Hold
I can
on.
tell you wanted to.
Wait, oh, how did you know? Okay, here we go. Shall I compare thee to a summer's day? Thou art more lovely and more temperate. Rough winds do shake the darling buds of May, and summer's lease hath all too short a date. Sometime too hot the eye of heaven shines, and often is his gold complexion dim. And every fair from fair sometime declines, by chance or nature's changing course untrimmed. But thy eternal summer shall not fade, nor lose possession of that fair thou oust. Okay. Nor shall death brag thou wanderest in his shade, when in eternal lines to time thou growst. So long as men can breathe or eyes can see, so long lives this, and this gives life to thee.
Okay, thank you, Maren. All right, let's look at the rhyme scheme. So we have, shall I compare thee to a summer's day? And you notice that then rhymes with May. So there's our AA. Then our B would be temperate in date. BB. That's the first quatrain. Let's go to the second quatrain. Sometime too hot, the eye of heaven shines. So you've got shines would be C. Rhymes with declines. There's our CC. And our dim, D, would be dim and untrimmed. Let's go to the next quatrain. EF, EF, so fade with shade, our E. And then this one might be a little bit of a stretch, but the F's would be oust and growest. I think it's supposed to be how thou grows, is what it means, but a little stretch there. Oust and grouse. Anyway, Those are supposed to rhyme, according to Shakespeare. Little stretch maybe. And then our couplet, so long as men can breathe or eyes can see, so long lives this, and this gives life to thee. So we have see and me then, rhyming. So he stayed true to his rhyme scheme. Let's break it down a little bit. Well, actually, let me back up a minute before we start breaking it down. It's important to know that Shakespeare's sonnets, and I don't know how anybody could stick with this through 154 sonnets, but he was able to. Besides always having the same rhyme scheme, the same meter. What's the meter? Well, we said that in iambic pentameter, so like a heartbeat. That he also sticks true to the first line of his poem are always going to be posing some type of statement or a question. So in this case, we see, shall I compare thee to a summer's day? That's the question. Then he uses the next two quatrains, or the rest of the first quatrain and the second quatrain, then he's mulling over the question or the statement that he's made in the first line. And so it's like he's mulling things over, he's trying to prove his statement. And then you'll have the third quatrain, and then the couplet, which is further strengthening his question or maybe answering the question that he's posed or backing up that thesis. You always have a turn, also a change in direction of the poem usually about the last quatrain. So we'll look at that, how that happens, but the poem will change direction. So let's look. The question that he posed, shall I compare thee to a summer's day? So here's his question, and let's see how he directs that and how he continues to elaborate on that. Thou art more lovely and more temperate, rough winds do shake the darling bud of May. So there we have May, and alluding to the summer, all right? So we know what in literature, months, summers, or not summers, but seasons. We know that May then would be what? What season is May? In spring, late spring or summer. So when things are, flowers are blooming, and so new beginnings, or kind of into a little past the new beginnings, but it would be representing happiness and happy times, and it certainly has a positive connotation. In summers, there we go with summers. Lease have all too short a date. That is a very, very important line. In summers, lease have all too short a date. What does that mean?
Does it last so long?
Yeah, that's exactly right. So we talked about, so here we have the season of summer. Summer would represent what?
New beginning.
Happiness,
That's
youthfulness, okay, youthfulness. And if it's saying that basically usefulness has too short of a date, that's exactly what it means. Your youth goes away very quickly. You can't hang on to your youth. It comes and goes way too fast. It's basically what he's saying. Sometime too hot, the eye of heaven shines. So that would be, alluding to good times and happiness, and, the happiness of youth and this sort of thing. And often his gold complexion dim. So there we have is talking about the fair-haired youth, so kind of a fair-haired young man, talking about his gold complexion, and often is his gold complexion dim. And every fair from fair sometimes declines. So what he's saying there is that the gold complexion, which certainly would be the complexion of someone youthful, starts to dim. And fair from fair meaning handsome or youthful looking, attractive, starts to decline. So he's obviously talking about youthfulness. Youth does not last, and at some point, as you grow older, you start losing your looks and your good looks by chance or nature's changing course untrimmed. So nature's course is just part of nature. You grow older, your complexion dims, you lose a lot of your attractiveness. But now we have the part of the poem, the last quatrain, and the couplet starts in every sonnet by Shakespeare. It's the same pattern. We have a reversal, and he's using the word but, right? However, thy eternal summer shall not fade, nor lose possession of that fair thou owest, nor shall death brag thou wanderest in his shade, when in eternal lines of time thou growest. All right, so he's saying, although youth fades away way too quickly, and you lose your looks, nature's way of, change, nothing is ever, just like we know from the Viking poetry, nothing is permanent in life, no permanence in life. However, your eternal young lad, handsome young lad, your eternal summer will not fade, and you're not going to lose possession of your fairness, your good looks, and even death is not going to throw shade on you. So Shakespeare was talking about throwing shade way before anybody else. When in eternal lines to time thou growest. Again, a very important line. When in eternal lines to time thou growest. What is he talking about when he says in eternal lines? What are the eternal lines that he's talking about?
Lines as in like stopping point or what? What does that mean? What is it?
I'll put it on what you to think about.
Yeah, I don't know.
So he's a writer, when in eternal lines, what eternal lines would he be talking about if he's a writer, Shakespeare? I'm not talking about the lines on his face.
Poetry line?
Yes! Ella on top of it, girl, surprise me every day. Look at you. That's exactly right. You're gonna say that next, aren't you? So that's exactly right. He's talking about the lines of his poetry that he's written. So in eternal lines, you're growing, okay, in my eternal lines. So long as men can breathe or eyes can see, so long live this, in this gift life to be. So basically he's saying, I'm immortalizing you, young, youthful, handsome, fair-complected man. I'm immortalizing you through the lines of my poetry. So you will never lose your youthfulness. Even death will not take away your youthfulness, because you will forever be alive and youthful and handsome in the lines of my poetry. That's exactly what he's saying. Huh? It's very nice. And he's saying, as long as men can breathe and they can read my poetry, they can see and read my poetry, you will live on. You will never die, because you're in my poems. It's very lovely. And I mean, think about it. That is true in art. So poetry could be certainly in paintings and such. And back in this time period, that was a big deal to have a portrait of yourself or your loved ones. And by the way, that was the only people that ever were having portraits made of them would be the very rich, the elite, royalty. Nobody else would be able to do it or wouldn't be able to afford it. But that was a way, you very rarely saw portraits of some old hag. I mean, they're always when they're in their prime and they're handsome and they look good. There's a reason for that. So that for years to come, when anybody would look at their painted portrait, they would see them as they were when they were young and beautiful and handsome. So they lived on, and it's a way of immortalizing someone. So the arts do that. Did that then, still do. If somebody, writes a song about you, well, that's immortalizing you, right? So really it's a very lovely poem. We're going to look at now, make sure you hold on to this, don't throw it away. Most of y'all probably should still have this, maybe, but I'm just going to go ahead and give you another copy. It's Shelley's Ozymandias. Ozymandias. No, that was Edna. That did come away.
I don't remember reading.
You don't?
Yeah, it's like the person who did.
My English
Well, we read it
for myself.
during the Viking poetry.
Oh.
Because we were comparing it
I
with the
He like
fact that
passed
the
it out, and was
Vikings
like, guess how to say it?
in the Wandering
We
Seafarer,
don't know.
one of the main themes of those poems was there's no
Right here too, I still
permanent
have.
life.
Oh, I got it.
Changes.
Oh, I probably should have.
And so we read this.
I read the
and we
So what do you say?
Wait, what?
You said you probably still have it. And I'm like, you know what? I just have a hard time reading it.
Yeah,
No, I keep
a
everything.
lot of y'all probably do have it.
There's no way I don't have it.
Bro, I thought I ordered my first. That's
Oh,
it.
right here.
Do you?
How about
Oh, look at this.
That's it.
Matthew, I have it.
That is low key.
Man, I didn't do any of it. Not a single one. I took one.
Okay, so let's read, I'm sure this will come back to you as you're reading it, Ozymandias. We'll talk about it for a minute. This is a sonnet, another sonnet, right? Notice 14 lines. Not the same rhyme scheme. In fact, we could go through and look at it. There is a lot of rhyming in it, but it's a different rhyme scheme. But let's read it. This is by Percy Bysshe Shelley, so we'll be studying him in a couple of short weeks. He's the husband of Mary Shelley, by the way. You make sure you've read Frankenstein we will probably get to it, I'm thinking, let's see, next week, I do have something to give y'all too. For next week, we'll start with the Renaissance, and we're gonna be talking about satire, and we're gonna be reading, and I'm gonna give you guys a copy to read, Jonathan Swift's A Modest Proposal. Have any of y'all ever read that? Nobody? Okay. Good. So anyway, we'll be talking about that the first part of next week, and then we will read Mary Wollstonecraft. I'll probably give y'all, we're not gonna read her whole treatise because it's like 200 and something pages, but we're gonna read some sections of it, and I'll give y'all a copy of that to read at home. And then the next week, we will start Frankenstein. All right, so we got about another week before we get to it. So this is written by Mary Shelley's husband. Let's read it. I met a traveler from an antique land who said, two vast and trunkless legs of stone stand in the desert. Near them on the sand, half sunk, a shattered visage lies, whose frown and wrinkled lip and sneer of cold command tell that its sculptor well those passions bred, which yet survived, stamped on these lifeless things, the hand that mocked them and the heart that fed. And on the pedestal those words appear, my name is Ozymandias, king of kings. Look on my works, ye mighty, in despair. Nothing beside remains, rounded decay of that colossal wreck, boundless and bare, the lone and level sands stretch far away. So again, another example of a sonnet, 14 lines, different rhyme scheme. But you notice at the beginning, he does a lot like Shakespeare does. At the beginning, he's talking about something, and then it turns the last, about 6 lines. About 6 lines from the end, there is a switch to some extent. There's a little bit of a turn in there. I met a traveler from an antique land. So what is he talking about at the beginning, Shelley? Who would be a traveler from an antique land? What does that mean? What would be the antique land?
An old place.
Yeah. And specifically, it would be Egypt, okay? Because this is talking about the Sphinx, that's right. A Sphinx of a king, Ozymandias. And so that's what they used to do in Egypt, ancient Egypt. Hello.
Hey, I just came to see.
You did?
Yeah,
How are you?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm good. Are you gonna take
This is sort of.
American Lit next semester? No, you didn't take.
No, that's what I'm taking next.
Oh, good, okay, so you did, that's right, I remember now, so 1302. Excellent, all right. Bye, Quentin, you leaving?
Yep.
All right. See you tomorrow.
Come on, dude. Your escort.
All right, so that's the ancient Egyptians used to do that. They would build these great sphinxes of their kings. And so this is what this is making reference to, is a sphinx that was built in honor of Ozymandias, the king of kings. So, this traveler from an ancient land or an antique land would be Egypt. And he's describing the sphinx. So, two vast trunkless legs of stone stand in the desert. Near them on the sand have sunk a shattered visage lies. Anyway, then it's just describing the sphinx. Tell that in sculpture, will those passions red which yet survive, stamped on these lifeless things, the hand that mocked them, and the heart that fed, and on the pedestal those words appear, my name is Ozymandias, blah, 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 blah. Nothing beside remains, round the decay of that colossal wreck, boundless and bare, the lone and level sand stretched far away. So what's happened then to this sphinx?
Fully forgotten.
It's been totally forgotten, but also what else?
It's something bigger than broken.
Yeah, it's the sands of time, literally the sand has eaten away at it. It's decayed. There's very little of it left. And so basically, this is why we read this when we were reading the Viking poetry, is because a lot of the same theme in this poem as what we have with the Viking poetry. So nothing stays the same. There's no permanent.
Students, please remove all vehicles from the marching band area of the student parking lot by 4:15.
There's no permanence in life, and nothing lasts forever. So that's exactly what's happened to this sphinx that was built in honor of King Ozymandias. So the passage of time causes everything to decay, and what was once beautiful and youthful and young, it's not going to stay that way.
It's the opposite of the other one. It's the opposite of this one.
In what way?
This one's
Well,
talking about
okay. Well, you're talking about because he's
at the end.
immortalizing it. Okay, well then, yeah, you're right. That's a very good point. But you have time and the toll that time takes on everything and everybody. So yeah, this one doesn't have quite as happy an ending with it being immortalized. I guess it, to some extent, a sphinx would be immortalizing their king, but after thousands of years, it's going to be the sand and and the wind and such is going to destroy it. Okay, make sure you hold on to this too, because we'll probably be talking about it a little bit more as we get into Shelley. What I'm going to have you guys do, remember too, though, again, that is a sonnet. I'm going to let y'all. We're going to look at some more. We looked at the Edna St. Vincent Millay modern sonnet yesterday. But we're going to look at a few more. Sorry, no problem. Okay, we're going to work on looking at some more sonnets, modern sonnets. So, this is so much fun. I'm going to let y'all work on this one. Copy. So this one is a poem written by Thomas Kenny. He was right there on that wall. He wrote a really beautiful version or translation of Beowulf. And he's still alive, by the way. He's like in his 80s. Maybe older than that. Where it is? Oh, this one. Oh, okay. Y'all can work on this. Y'all can work on this one. Now, this is another one by Edna St. Vincent Millay from yesterday. Another sonnet. And I'm going to let y'all, okay, work on this one. A little bit of a down on this one. If we must die. That's what that was about. Some of these poets would write some happy stuff, wouldn't you? Oh, wait, Longfellow did. He's the one that wrote all, I think, visited the poppy seeds and partook of some poppy seeds that he loved to write about in his poem. Okay, I'm gonna let y'all have Robert Frost Ovenberg. Robert Frost, right? Modern poet. He's an American poet, he's not Brit. Probably read him before when he was 22. So he wouldn't have already read it. The top for he was 2, but maybe he was 1, I don't know. All right, so what I want y'all to do, we did an analysis of the Shakespearean play, Sonnet 18. So what I want y'all to do is do pretty much the same thing in your group with a poem that you have. I want you to go through, analyze it. You can write all over this. That's, I think, the best way to do really a good analysis is to print it off and then just write off to the side what you think each line means. And then there's your analysis. This is what I would suggest y'all maybe do with your Shakespearean sonnet that you're going to be writing or doing analysis of. So I'll let y'all have the rest of the period. We're going to have about 14, 15 minutes. And we're going to look at them tomorrow, all right? You don't have to write them on a separate piece of paper. You want to just write your analysis out on the side of this and just kind of come to a, conclusion, or if everybody wants to look it over and then talk it out in your group, that's fine too.